So today we are going to build our very own gingerbread house. Now this is going to be a little bit tricky and it's going to take some time, but trust me, the end result is definitely worth it. We're going to need the whole family for this one. So we're going to need the adults to take care of the baking and maybe some cutting out, and then the kids can get involved with the construction and the decoration. So the first thing that we are going to need for our gingerbread house is a template. We're going to need some walls and we're going to need a roof. So we have already pre-prepared a template. So your template is going to consist of 6 panels. So you're going to need a front and a back. So you need 2 of these. We're going to need a roof panel, so 2 of these as well, and a side for our house, so we're going to need 2 as well. Now we've pre-prepared this, you can find it down in the description below if you want to print that off and use ours. If you don't and you want to get creative and design your own, go ahead and do that, and we'd love to see what you guys come up with. So to start off with, what you want to do is you want to get one of your adults to preheat your oven to about 200 degrees, which is about 180 fan, and then we will weigh out and get ready with our ingredients. So I've started out and I've pre-weighed the dry ingredients, which is our flour, our bicarbonate of soda, and the ginger, which I've got in my bowl here. And then we've got our wet ingredients over here, which we're going to melt together. So our wet ingredients are our golden syrup, our butter, and our sugar. Now that sounds a little bit strange, but yes, sugar is classed as a wet ingredient when it comes to most baking. So we're going to put that all together in the pot, and you're going to want to melt that quite slowly over a low heat until it becomes thick and gloopy. Now you can see over here that this is what I did in my very own kitchen. So just throw it all in the pot together and very gently, continuing to mix it all the time. Just keep going until you get that lovely consistency. It should be around the consistency of your golden syrup by the end of it. All right, so now this has all completely melted and we've got that thick kind of double cream consistency. We're going to pour our wet ingredients into our dry ingredients. Firstly, we'll give our dry ingredients a little mix around, just so that we get all of that ginger incorporated all the way through our flour. That mix. And then we pour the wet into the dry. Yes. All of it in there. Now be careful because this will still be hot and you're dealing with hot sugar, so just be very careful when you're mixing it together. And then that should start to come together into a dough. Might take a while. Keep mixing around. And make sure you're getting all the way to the bottom of your bowl, getting all of that flour all incorporated. You can make a mess as well, that's the fun bit. You can start to tell, that we're getting it there because it's starting to change colour in the bowl as all of the flour is disappearing. Okay, so we're nearly there. So what I'm going to do is we're going to bring the rest of it together with our hands, because it will have cooled down a bit now. So I can use my hands, all nicely washed of course. And we'll bring the rest of that together until we get our dough. Okay. I pull a little bit out of the bowl for you guys to see. So it should look like this towards the end. Now you want to bring it together until it's just together. With biscuits, you don't want to mix the flour too much or it'll start to become kind of brittle and really difficult to work with as we go along. So we want a nice soft dough. So once that's brought together, we can start to roll it out and make our shapes. So now we're going to roll out our dough and cut out our panels for our house. So you see here, I've prepped 2 sheets of greaseproof paper. I'm only going to do a little bit at a time just to show you guys. Take maybe about 1/3 of our dough. You might want to do it in batches so it's easier to work with. And kind of flatten it out into a rectangle. Sandwich it between your other piece of greaseproof paper. And then take your rolling pin and roll it out. Now we're trying to get it not too thick, but not too thin. If it's too thin, then our panels will snap when we want to put them together. Too thick, and they'll take much longer to bake, but they will be quite structurally sound. So we're going to try and get a big rectangle. I'm going to keep turning it. Okay, let's have a little check of it. Looks about right. So you want to go maybe a centimetre or two. Should be right. Okay. So now we've got our piece all flattened out like this. We're going to take our piece here and we'll figure out the best way to lay it out so that we can get the most out of the piece of dough that we have here. And then we're going to cut around that. So once we've got our panels cut out, instead of moving the panels, we're going to take away the excess from around the edges. So we've got nice crisp lines and nice crisp edges all the way around. Okay. So I've got one front piece and one side here. And with all the pieces that you've taken off, you put them back in the bowl and you can just scrunch them back together and keep rolling them out to make your next pieces. But I'm going to add some windows to my house. I'm going to do that with these little cutters. So I'm going to add a window in the front piece around about here. Push that in. So instead, like you normally would with a cutter, I'm going to leave the piece in there while it's baking. And that just helps to get some crisp lines when we take it out afterwards. And then I'm going to add some windows on the side piece. So square windows. So. And then another thing that you can do with this is you can imprint little patterns into your dough as well. So I'm going to use the top of my round cutter, like that. And my square cutter here to straighten those sides down at the bottom to create a little door shape. Now I've not cut all the way through, it's just a little imprint that will still show up after we've been baking. So now we've got our panels, and like I said, just keep smooshing that together, rolling it out until you have your 6 panels, your 2 sides, your 2 roof panels, and your front and your back panel. So what we need to do now is we need to get this onto our baking tray. Now, it is still quite delicate, so we don't want to move it too much. So the best way to do that is to take your baking tray and literally hold it level with your bench and just use the greaseproof paper and slide it onto your baking tray like that. Sits it there. You can trim the edges if you want to. If you have a fan oven, then you can do that. So that it doesn't flap around in the oven and change the shape of your gingerbread, but otherwise it should be fine. And then this is going to go into the oven for around 10 to 12 minutes, just keep an eye on it, and we are going to prep our sugar for our windows. So our windows are going to have sugar glass inside them, and we're going to do that by using some boiled sweets. These are lemon sherbets that I'm using, so you get that yellow colour in the glass. You can use whichever colour you want, so whichever sweet will make the different colour of glass. So this is the fun bit, where you get to smash the sweets into lots of tiny little bits. So I'm going to use my rolling pin, and I'm going to use the end of the rolling pin this time in a bowl. You can either do this in a bowl or in a little sandwich bag, and that stops the mess flying everywhere. But we're just going to give it a go here. So we're going to smash these up. Ooh. Good. There's a lot of frustration out doing it that way as well. So what we've got is a lot of mess. So what we've got is this little pieces of crystals. What it looks like. And these are going to melt down into our sugar glass. So now we've got our sugar crystals ready to go into our windows. So around 2 minutes before the end of the cooking time, we're going to take the gingerbread out of the oven. So it's not completely done yet. Now, do you remember those shapes that we made, those windows that we cut earlier on, and we left those shapes in there? That was for a reason. So we're going to cut those again. We're going to go around it either with a knife or again with our cutter and take that bit out now. This means that we have nice edges to our windows. So we're going to fill those gaps that we now have with our sugar crystals and then put that back in the oven for the last 2 to 3 minutes of baking. So what that's going to do is going to allow our gingerbread to cook through, but also it's going to start to melt that sugar. And that's going to go all bubbly and lava-like, and it's going to create a lovely sheet of sugar glass in our windows. So once we've got to the end of our cooking time, your gingerbread is lovely and dark colour around the edges, and we've got our nice glass all melted in there. We can take that out and it's ready to let it cool slightly. Now when it's cooled a little bit, you might realise that during the cooking process, your gingerbread shapes have gone a bit wonky, that they're not the shape, nice clean edges that you put in there, and that's okay, that's just what happens. So what we'll do to make sure that we have a shape that we can construct properly is we'll go back to using our template pieces. So we'll use our template, pop it back over the gingerbread piece and just trim the edges down. You can do this with a knife, or if you wait until it's cooled down completely, you can use a grater and file down the edges that way. So once you have a shape that you're happy with, you can leave that to the side, let them cool and set and go completely hard, and then we will be ready to construct. All right, so now we have left our panels to cool completely and they are solid, and we can have a look at those lovely windows, the sugar glass windows that we created. You see you get this lovely stained glass effect in them, which is really awesome. And we'll be able to see lots of the light shimmering off them as we construct it as well. Now, at home, you guys can use a plate or something to construct on. I'm going to use this cake board here today. And for the glue for our house, we're going to use some royal icing. Now, you don't have to worry about making royal icing, you can buy it in the shops. I've got it here in a piping bag. This is going to give you a little bit more control when you're putting it together, but you can just use a knife and take it out of the pot that way. If you've never used a piping bag before, it's super easy. We're going to twist the top to make sure that stuff doesn't come out, and we're going to use this kind of L shape of our hand. We're going to put that in there, twist it round, and then we can use this hand to apply pressure, and we get the royal icing coming out of the end. So I'm going to start constructing here. This is the part that you're going to want a lot of hands for. You're going to be a lot of people holding the pieces in place while they dry and helping you construct them. I'm here by myself at the moment, so let's see how this goes. So first off, I'm going to start by putting some royal icing onto the board itself, so that I can, spinning. Okay. And I'm going to prep 2 of my pieces at the same time because I don't have anyone to hold it for me. So I'm going to take the inside of the back piece here, and I'm going to put some royal icing, nice dollop of it, all the way along that inside edge, like that. Let's do some more, just make sure it's absolutely going to stick together. Good, and I'm going to take one of my side pieces and do exactly the same. And take along one of the edges. That's the edge that's going to be stuck to our house. Just like that. Okay. So this little line that I've made here, I'm going to push the back piece into that. And our 2 pieces here, we're going to smoosh those together. And it's up to you how you want to do your construction. If you want to make sure you've got some lovely right angles and get your spirit level out, that is totally up to you. I'm going to hold these in place. And hopefully, when I take my hands away, they'll stay together. Ready? Okay, I'm scared. In 3, 2, 1. Yes! Yes! Okay, so now that you've done that, you're basically going to use that principle again to do your other side, so your second side of your house, and the front. Okay, so now we have our house kind of partially constructed. We've got our two walls and our front and our back all together and still standing, which is great. I'm going to make sure that it stays that way. I'm going to put some extra royal icing just on the inside corners of these joins, on all four corners, and then we will leave it to the side for about an hour or so until our royal icing has set completely, to make sure that it's ready for our roof panels. So now that we've left our walls to set and they are pretty sturdy, we can now add our roof panels, and we're just going to do this in exactly the same way as we did the sides. So we're going to go back and use more of our royal icing, and I'm going to put it along all of the points of contact. So all the way along here, along the eaves of the roof as well. It again, make sure it's not going to go anywhere. Okay, and we can take our roof panel now. Now you can decide, because our roof panels are going to be slightly wider than the house, so you can decide how much overhang at the front you want. So if we line it up completely flush with the back of the walls, we'll get this little overhang in the front, which is quite nice. Those together. Just hold it in place for a little bit. Let it go again. Great. So we're just going to do the same thing for the other side. Okay, so now that we've got our roof tiles in place, now they are still going to move a little bit, so they're not completely set yet. What we're going to do is we're going to fill in this little gap at the top with some more royal icing, just to make sure, triple sure, that it's not going to go anywhere. And then again, we've got to leave this to completely harden before we put our decorations on. All right, so we're just gonna maneuver that. And you can charge someone at home. You can tell them that they've got to hold the roof panels in place the whole time. I'm just joking. But we should be able to leave that again to the side until it's solid and ready to decorate.